All right, today we are jumping right into an absolutely incredible story. We're going to trace the journey of how a collection of nomadic tribes, caught between these sprawling, powerful empires, somehow became a unified kingdom of their own.
So how on earth does something like that even happen? How does a wandering tribe, totally surrounded by superpowers, not only forge a kingdom, but also introduce a world-changing idea? Well, to figure that out, we've got to go back, way back to the very beginning, to a land that was basically the crossroads of the ancient world.
Right. So our story kicks off in a place called Canaan. And you got to understand, this was way more than just a strip of land on a map. It was this bustling hub for trade, for culture, and for a whole lot of gods.
Yeah, think about it. Being right in the middle of everything meant the people here were like a sponge. They were constantly soaking up influences from their powerful neighbors. They adopted their customs, their way of life, and, this is super important, their beliefs. That meant worshiping a whole pantheon of gods, just like pretty much everyone else around them.
And you could see just how surrounded they were. You've got Egypt to the south, Mesopotamia to the east. It was a busy, busy place. This is what's so wild. Canaan wasn't some quiet backwater. It was a highway for armies, for traders, for ideas. So the fact that a truly unique, singular identity could emerge from all that, well, that's what makes this story so incredible. Okay, so in this world, just jam-packed with different gods for everything, something completely different was about to happen. A brand new concept began to take root. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this idea was so radical, it would literally change the course of human history. And it all started with one guy's journey.
And that idea was monotheism, the belief in just one God. Now, this concept, which comes into the story with a man named Abraham from Mesopotamia, was a total game changer. Think about it. In a world where every city, every king, every mountain had its own god, the idea of one single, universal God, one that wasn't tied to a specific place or a ruler, whoa, that was a direct challenge to the entire power structure of the ancient world.
So you can see how this idea starts to build a people. It begins with Abraham, who gets this call to head to Canaan. Then his grandson, Jacob, who's renamed Israel, has 12 sons. And boom, those sons become the founders of the 12 tribes. This isn't just a family tree, you guys. It's the blueprint for a nation. All of them connected by this promise of land and this unique belief in one God that made them completely different from everybody else.
But their journey takes a really dark turn. You see, that famine forces them down into Egypt. And what started as a place of refuge, well, it turns into a nightmare. It becomes this crucible of oppression. But it's this exact period of hardship that's going to be the fire that forges them, that turns these separate tribes into one single, resilient people.
And what a trial it was. First, they're enslaved in Egypt. Then, Moses leads them out in this dramatic event we know as the Exodus. They have this miraculous escape through the Red Sea, and then they enter into this covenant in the desert where Moses receives the law. This whole sequence, generations of slavery, a crazy escape, decades wandering in the desert, all of it was absolutely crucial for hammering these scattered tribes into a single people with one shared story and one set of laws.
And a key part of that was this moment, the 10 Commandments. It's so easy to just think of them as a list of don'ts, but they were so much more than that. This was the social and moral bedrock for their new national identity. It was basically their constitution, handed down in the middle of the wilderness, that would guide them for centuries.
All right, so after all that, they finally make it into the Promised Land. But there's a huge problem. They don't have any central leadership. And this leads to a really chaotic, really violent time. It basically exposed a massive weakness, especially when they were up against enemies who were way more organized.
And you can really see the problem here. On one side, you have the era of the judges, where the tribes are all disunified. There's no standing army, no central leader. Then, on the other side, you have the Philistines. They are organized, they're a formidable enemy with better military tech, and they are constantly raiding. This old system of just having a leader pop up during a crisis, it just wasn't cutting it anymore. It was an existential threat. It became clear. They needed a king.
And so they get their first king, Saul. He's anointed by the prophet Samuel, and at first he doesn't even want the job. But he steps up, he unifies the tribes, proves himself in battle, and starts to push back against their enemies. He was absolutely the leader they needed at that moment, but his reign was messy. It was troubled, and in the end, he lost divine favor, which kind of set the stage for a new kind of leader, one who could do more than just win on the battlefield.
And boy, did that new leader arrive.
This next king wasn't just going to solidify what Saul started, he was going to take it to a whole new level. He was going to transform this fragile coalition of tribes into a genuine regional power, kicking off what everyone remembers as a true golden age.
And look how fast this all happens. Around 1020 BC, Saul pulls the tribes together. By 1000, David is king. A few years later, he captures Jerusalem and makes it the capital. And by 970, his son Solomon is on the throne. We're talking about a massive consolidation of power in just a few decades. It goes from a shaky coalition to a real dynasty, putting Israel firmly on the map.
Of course, David's story really kicks into high gear with this legendary moment. The shepherd boy against the giant Goliath. I mean, one shot and it's over. This single act of insane courage catapulted him from being just a kid to a national hero. It was like a giant flashing sign pointing to his destiny as the future king.
But David wasn't just a warrior. He was a brilliant strategist. He captures Jerusalem, which had been a neutral city, and makes it his capital. This was an absolutely genius move. Why? Because it gave the kingdom a central hub, a heart that was both political and spiritual. It was the perfect way to tie all the different tribes together in one single, powerful place.
And under David's leadership, the whole thing comes together. I mean, all 12 tribes are finally truly unified. The state is centralized. Those old enemies, like the Philistines, are defeated. The kingdom expands. This is it. The journey from those scattered, wandering tribes we started with is complete. Israel is now a stable, powerful kingdom, finally realizing that promise that was made so many centuries before.
So, there you have it. A unified kingdom was forged, a capital was built, and a golden age began. But here's the thing. Can a golden age really last forever? The foundation was solid, no doubt, a remarkable achievement born from a radical idea and forged in fire. But as we're about to see, the new challenges weren't coming from the outside anymore. They were coming from within. Succession, wealth, power, those are the things that would really test the strength of this new kingdom.